This video is brought to you by Project Management Solutions Limited, a Bahamian business committed to showing you ways to use project management skills to make your life better. You are progressing well with your project management plan. By now, you have categorized and prioritized your requirements, created a plan to manage your requirements, determine what is included and excluded from your project, broken your project work into work packages, listed the activities, sequenced the activities, determined the resources necessary to complete the activities, determine the duration required to complete the activities, schedule a time to complete each activity, estimate the cost and determine the budget, create a plan to manage quality, make sure you assign the right people to the project and create a plan to do that, and create a plan to determine who, what, and why you should communicate and when. At the end of this module, you should be able to figure out what is necessary to make or buy to pull off the project and plan stakeholder management. Quantifying risks is a process that evaluates the impacts of risks prioritized during the qualitative risk analysis process. This is typically performed for those risks that are identified in perform qualitative risk analysis that could have a significant impact on the project. Perform quantitative risk analysis quantifies the aggregate risk exposure for the project by assigning numeric probabilities to risks and their impacts on project objectives. Planned risk responses is a process of deciding which actions to take to reduce threats and take advantage of the opportunities discovered during the risk analysis process. This process also includes assigning departments or individual staff members the responsibility of carrying out the risk response plans that you will outline in this process. In most instances, you will want to develop risk response plans for those risks with a combination of high probability or occurrence and significant impact to the project. Those ranked high or red on the probability impact matrix, or those ranked high as a result of performed quantitative risk analysis. Spend your time planning responses that are appropriate given the impact the risk poses or the opportunity the risk presents. All projects require resources that in some cases may include materials or goods. Project procurement management includes the processes necessary to purchase or acquire products, service, or results needed from outside the project team. The organization may be either the buyer or the seller of the products, services, or results of the project. As project manager, you may also be responsible for managing contracts and purchase orders as part of your procurement management responsibilities. Contracts are legal documents between the buyer and the seller. Procurement contracts are legally binding and may include terms and conditions, as well as other items that the buyer specifies to establish what the seller is to perform or provide. As project manager, you will ensure that all procurement meet the specific needs of the project while adhering to the organization's procurement policies. When thinking about whether or not to acquire outside support, consider what needs to be acquired, how it needs to be acquired, how much of it needs to be acquired, and when it should be acquired. Consider who is responsible for obtaining or holding any relevant permits and professional licenses that may be required by legislation, regulation, or organizational policy in executing the project. The project schedule requirements may specifically influence your strategy for planning procurements. The scope statement describes the need of the project and lists the deliverables and acceptance criteria for the product or service of the project. Consider assumptions that relate to the reliability of the vendor. Assuming that key resources will be available and that there will be adequate stakeholder involvement may impact the decisions made as it relates to planning procurements. The product scope description included in the project scope statement may alert you to special considerations such as the services, technical requirements, and skills needed to produce the product of the project. The Work Breakdown Structure and the Work Breakdown Structure Dictionary identify deliverables and describe the work required for each element of the work breakdown structure.
The work breakdown structure represents 100% of the work of the project. Collectively, all levels of the work breakdown structure roll up into the top as such that 100% of the project work is captured.
The risk register, which includes risk-related information such as identified risks, risk owners, and risk responses, may also serve as a guide for determining the types of services or goods needed for procurement. Consider the risks involved with each make or buy decision. This information may impact the type of contract that is used with respect to mitigating risks or sometimes transferring risks to a seller. Risk-related contract decisions include agreements such as insurance, bonding services, and other items as appropriate that are prepared to specify each party's responsibility for specific risks as it relates to the project's procurement activity. Activity resource requirements that contain information on specific needs such as people, equipment, or location, as well as the project schedule, may be used when planning procurements. The schedule contains information on the timelines of mandated delivery dates. This information is important to have when planning procurements. Activity cost estimates developed by procurement activity are used to evaluate how reasonable potential seller bids or proposals are. This information works in conjunction with the cost performance baseline, which provides detail on the planned budget over time. Consider requirements with contractual and legal implications, which may include health, safety, security, performance, environmental, insurance, intellectual property rights, equal opportunity licenses, and permits. All of these elements should be considered when planning procurements. Inevitably, your project plan will impact your stakeholders positively and sometimes negatively. As project manager, you may find that you must continuously create effective ways of keeping stakeholders engaged in the project, managing the expectations that you have for them and their expectations for you on the project.
The ultimate goal of a project is to meet the stakeholders' objectives, and as such, it would make sense that the stakeholders are front of mind. Stakeholder management is important, critical to the success of a project. And the key to all of that is relationship building. Managing stakeholders is just really about building relationships and maintaining them so that the stakeholder can get the value that they need from the project.
Discussion questions. What is meant by procurement? Why are contracts and purchase orders necessary when planning the procurement requirements for the project? What is included as a part of planning procurement activities? What should be some consideration when determining whether or not to acquire products, services, or results from outside of the organization to meet the project requirements?